Hello there, on today's immigration news premier content. My name is Dadai Felua. Australia's financial requirement capacity for international students rises again. Australia is set to raise the amount of savings needed by international students to gain student visa, as the financial capacity requirement is increased for the second time in 7 months. The new rule was set to come into effect on May 10, and we will see international students required to show proof of saving at least 29,710 AUD.
Well, just like the news says, this is the second time within 7 months that the Australian government have looked at the requirements for students, international students, to have as evidence of proof of funds from 24,505 AUD to 29,710. That's almost like 5,000 AUD added to what's required by international students. It simply means the checks and balances they're trying to put in place is actually getting more stern for international students.
Canada, invitations to apply for parents and grandparents program forthcoming. IRCC has announced that it will accept up to 20,500 applications for sponsorship for parents and grandparents program in 2024, allowing sponsoring Canadian citizens or permanent residents to bring their parents and grandparents to Canada as permanent residents.
The PGP, this is a program that allows Canadian citizens and permanent residents to bring in their parents or grandparents into Canada for permanent residency. So we would analyze this policy from the pros and the cons, which is on the part of the government and as applicants. The first pro we're looking at is sponsors are going to be financially responsible for a certain period of time, and this reduces the strain on social services on the part of the government. Another pro of this policy is that it allows families to be reunited with their loved ones. So parents or persons that have been in Canada for a while can actually bring in their parents and not having to travel back and forth between their home country and their country of permanent residence. Now they can bring in their parents. And this allows, or like I said, allows for a reunion of families, less strain on the government, and it helps solve the address of shortage of labor in the sense that most grandparents and parents are still within the working age, and Canada has a labor shortage program at the moment, and I think this policy will further help address that as well. Now, moving to the cons, there's a limited number of spaces for applicants, just like the news said, and also sponsors would need to demonstrate sufficiently the capacity to provide for the applicants they are sponsoring for the time in which they would be coming into the country and for the time in which they will be financially responsible for them. And also, the process for this application is somewhat complicated and time consuming.
Reducing Canada temporary visa may include offering permanent residency. Mark Miller met with his provincial and territorial counterparts for the first time since he announced an unprecedented plan to set limits on the number of new temporary residents. The aim is to rein in runway growth, which has put pressure on the housing market and other services.
This is purely a method of restricting the population of temporary residents by offering them permanent residency. But there's a caveat by Mark Miller, as said in the news. Doesn't mean everyone who wants to stay will be able to. Then, furthermore, the effect of temporary residents is already being felt on the affordability of life in general in Canada. So why not factor them in and actually make them permanent residents, since the effect of their being there is already being felt in the economy. Now, the new targets for temporary residents, like the news stated, will be published in the fall, September, and I feel a lot of restrictions is going to come up with these new targets, which would then be converting a lot of temporary residents into permanent residents. But let's see how it plays out. But it's a good policy in the long run. I feel it will favor a lot of temporary residents who are already in Canada. They can be taken into full account by the government and have their permanent status. If you found this content useful, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. See you the next episode.